Now, a little warning before we begin, there are major spoilers ahead for the final 3 episodes of Andor Season 2, episodes 10, 11, and 12. So if you have not seen them yet and you don't want anything ruined, it is a really good time to click away. Alright, well, I feel like with these 3 episodes, I just watched a masterpiece be completed. I feel like what we got was nothing short of a work of art. A beautiful Star Wars picture has been painted by not only Tony Gilroy, but everyone else who worked on this. You can feel the care, the love, the passion that went into its creation. Everything from the writing, to the acting, to the visuals, to the score. It was all excellent. And maybe, just maybe, a few of the final strokes here at the end were just a bit hasty. Maybe some more final touches could have been put on here and there and inched us another hair closer to absolute perfection, because the show was as close to perfection as I think you can really get. But honestly, that tiny nitpick of the finale is probably just me wanting more, me not wanting this show to end, me refusing to let go of these characters because of this amazing ride we have gone on with them now. It's me feeling the pain of knowing how some of these stories are about to end, though yes, a heroic end it'll be for them. However, maybe the saddest part of all, the main reason I don't want to let go here, is because who knows when, or if I suppose, we'll ever get something this good from Star Wars ever again. Though I don't want to think about that right now. I don't want to dwell on the negative when there is so much good here to talk about. And as usual, as has been the case all season, this video will be a sort of overview of the 3 episodes. I'll cover some of the main things, give you my general feelings and that sort of thing, and then over the course of the next 3 days, I will do a video for each individual episode. And I think where we have to start here is with Luthen. I think we've all been rather eager to learn more about him, about where he came from, to perhaps understand what is motivating him to be someone who is willing to sacrifice everything for the cause. And it turns out that, well, my theories about his past were wrong, though there are still a lot of questions I think that need to be answered, or that I would love to have the answers for. We don't know how he knows so much about history and antiquities and all of that. What we instead got about his past via flashback, which hasn't happened. A flashback hasn't happened since the first arc in Season 1 with Cassian when he was back on Kenari. But what we got were flashbacks that showed us his connections to Clea, which very fittingly and very tragically was intercut with Clea on her way to try and kill Luthen, because of course if he wakes up he's going to be tortured, and inevitably you have to imagine he is going to give up everything he knows. And not only does Clea not want that to happen for obvious reasons, because it could bring down the rebellion and end the fight against the Empire, but I dare say she doesn't want to see his life's work, and hers as well, all be for naught. The only way to ensure his legacy is by killing him. And so while we are seeing Clea, in a sense, being trained by Luthen in the past, again in flashbacks, we're also seeing her on, again, her way to kill Luthen in the present. And the poetic part about it, if it can be called that given the circumstances, is we're seeing Luthen turn her into the type of person, with regrets it seems, but he is turning her into the type of person that will be able to do what has to be done in the present. We're seeing Luthen turn her into somebody that not only has the skills to infiltrate a med center under ISB lockdown, but has the, I guess you could call it, mental fortitude or the resolve to go in there and to kill the man that, for all intents and purposes, is her father, even if they only use such titles when it suits them. And even though Clea has been this sort of cold and emotionless character the whole series, even though we've really never seen any sort of crack in her armor before, she's the one that has been keeping Luthen sort of in check as of late, as things become too much for him to handle, as everything just continues to grow. But we can feel how much it is destroying her to have to go in there and do this, to go in and do what, again, must be done to her father. This was not exactly the way I saw Luthen going out, even though of all the characters going into this finale, he seemed the most likely, damn near certain, to be killed somehow, and I figured it would be gut-wrenching when it happened. And that there was even an outside chance Clea would have to do it, maybe because he was injured or something like that, and they were trying to escape together and she couldn't leave him behind, and that would have been gut-wrenching too. But I never could have imagined it would be quite like this. That again, it would be intercut with these flashbacks of her being trained by him to, like I said, turn her into the type of person able to do this sort of thing. It was easily one of the saddest things I've seen in a show in quite some time. But of course, what kicked all this off in the first place, what started this chain of events in motion, was Dedra finally catching up to Axis. Her finally discovering Luthen and his shop, and I love the conversation the two have at first, where Luthen is kind of subtly asking, "Are you here because you know who I really am?" Even though he was already pretty sure she knew. And she ultimately answers the question by showing him the Star Path unit from the very start of the series, the one that got left behind in that third episode of Season 1, the one Andor Cassian tried to go back for, but Luthen said to leave it. However, here, to finally catch Luthen, Dedra had to grow a little too ambitious, even for the Empire, which of course cast doubt upon her when Lonnie suddenly ends up dead, and it turns out she has a bunch of files she wasn't supposed to have and that she didn't report, including some about the Death Star. And again, very poetically, you could say it was her ambition to find Luthen, her not turning those reports in as she should have, that not only eventually saw them end up in the hands of the man she had been hunting, it is because she kept them that Lonnie was able to get his hands on them and to pass it along. She kind of failed very miserably at her mission. And then that information would also eventually make its way to the hands of the Rebellion, who, yes, would end up using the information to find the plans to the Death Star and to blow the whole thing up, and, well, you know that story. But not only that, but it also got her branded the very thing she'd been hunting so tirelessly and recklessly. It got her labeled a rebel, basically, or someone feeding information to those rebels. She, in a sense, became the very thing she swore to destroy. At least that's what they thought, that's what the Empire thought she was. Even though we, of course, know better, we know she was more for the Empire than pretty much anybody else we ever saw in the show. And that by arresting her and throwing her into what appears to be Narkina 5 for women, that they lost a valuable asset that if she had still been around, had she been promoted like she wanted to be, maybe she helps them eventually defeat the rebellion. Maybe that changed the course of history. We'll never know for sure. Either way, it was a perfect end for her, I think, and even though I've come to kind of like the character for what she is, and I was maybe rooting for her a bit to become an actual rebel and to join the good guys, I can't say that I felt bad for her in the end. I felt like she got exactly what she deserved, and I had no pity when the lights went out in her prison cell, when the floors went hot, and she broke down and cried. It wasn't the ending I saw for her. I thought she would just kind of stay in the Empire. A lot of people suspected or theorized she'd end up on the Death Star and that would be her end. But again, she got no less than she deserved, and something tells me there isn't going to be one way out for her in this instance. But of course, she wasn't the only Imperial whose story came to an end. We also had the former assistant of hers, the ambitious Hirt, who got used as a human meat shield by K2SO when saving Cassian, Melshi, and Clea. And I was happy to see Clea make it out of here. I had my doubts about that, especially when she kind of had accepted her fate, that she wasn't going to be accepted on Yavin. And they played it all very well. It was extremely tense, and again, I wasn't sure she was getting out alive, and I was happy she did. Either way, another Imperial who bit the dust was Partagas by taking his own life, of course, after he had failed so miserably that his whole department seemed to be kind of infiltrated right under his nose, and how everything was mismanaged at the end. And I loved that he was listening to Nemik's manifesto before he did it, as if he understood how much he and they, the ISB, had failed, that all of their efforts were in vain, that the rebellion was everywhere now. That it, the rebellion, and the manifesto had gone galaxy-wide, and that the Empire had no clue where that manifesto had come from, who wrote it, and they were trying so hard to stop it but couldn't. It was just a fantastic callback to that first season, and I was wondering how they were going to work it back in, because I figured they had to at some point. The manifesto had to come back around, and I wasn't disappointed with what they did with it. And now, even though there is tons and tons to go over, we do have to skip to the very end, where we go back to Mina Rao, back to the farm planet, and we first see B2EMO. He's still there, and he's looking happy as, he's maybe ever been before. And it's good to know that B is doing well, and he is getting a happy ending. But then we linger, and you start to wonder, is someone else maybe here? And sure enough, we see Bix, but she's not alone, as many out there predicted. She had a baby, which I'm sure, along with believing in the Force Healer and that Cassian has a destiny, it all played a very big part in her decision to leave him. And I absolutely think it was the best way to end everything. Because, yes, a part of you has your heart kind of broken in this moment that Cassian will never know he has a child, that he's about to die, and he'll never get to hold his child, much less again, even though they exist. But what he's doing or about to do will ensure that child actually has a future in the galaxy, one free anyway. He, Cassian, will play his part in the rebellion's ultimate victory over the Empire, which brings a bit of peace of mind, not to mention Cassian will live on in a way, not just in his friends and his actions, but through the life of his child. Somehow that scene both breaks your heart and mends it all at the same time. And so this was nothing short of brilliant all around. This was absolutely some of the best Star Wars ever. Yes, maybe we could have gotten a bit more here and there with the ending, which again is probably more of a want than an actual need, though I really felt like, personally anyway, I needed just a bit more from Perrin. Yes, we saw him with Skolden's wife, and it looked like they were coming home after a night of partying together, and there was a look of sadness on his face, like he was missing Mon, but I wish we got a little bit more from him because the little we got just left me with a ton more questions than answers. But anyway, I do think I will be able to live with those questions. The mystery of Perrin's life after Mon will remain, and that is okay, I suppose. But it is going to be harder living without more Andor, or knowing that more is yet to come. I mean, the sign of a really, really great show of fantastic storytelling and characters is feeling like a part of them is still with you after it all ends, and wishing to see those stories go on, even if it's just in a mundane way. And that's how I feel right now. Like, I just want the story to continue on, even though, yes, I will be watching Rogue One soon enough, probably tomorrow night, and it will go on a little bit more. These stories will go on a little bit more. But again, this story, these characters, everything about this show has been incredible. It has left a mark upon me. It will stay with me for probably the rest of my life. It'll go down, I think, easily as one of the best shows I have ever seen, and some of the greatest Star Wars I have ever seen. Well, that is going to be all I got for you this time. Again, I'll be doing each individual episode over the next 3 days, so by all means, check those out. But for now, it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought of this ending. Did you think it was incredible? Did you think it was okay? Or maybe you didn't like it at all? Whatever the case may be, though, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.